America is bombing Iran. Welcome to the African Point of View with me, Mr. T. So today I want to talk about the conflict that is going on in the Middle East. And the reason why I made this video is because many people have been asking me on TikTok, what is going on in the Middle East? Why are those countries bombing each other? Where did this war start? And all of those kind of questions. So I thought I'm going to make a video where I'm going to talk about the history. I'm going to talk about the things that are happening right now and what's likely to happen going forward. And also, how does that impact us and what is our African point of view? So let's dive in. So to understand the current war that is happening right now between Iran, Israel, and the United States in the Middle East, you need to go all the way back. So I'm going to take you back to the beginning. Well, not quite, but I'll take you to the inception of the State of Israel. So after World War II, as you might know, the Jewish population were looking for a place or for a home. Now, the British owned a territory in the Middle East called British Palestine. So they said that this would be a perfect place for these people to call home. Now, in that area, it wasn't an empty plot of land. There were people who were living there. But of course, those people didn't really have much of a say against the British. So they had to accept it. So in 1947, a partition was done in the United Nations. This was a way to say we're going to separate out this land and the Jewish population will live in these parts and then the Palestinians will live in these parts. Now, not everybody agreed with this. Mostly the Arab nations around did not agree with this. They did not like this idea. But the British and the Europeans and the Americans went through with it regardless. So in 1948, Israel declared independence. As soon as they did that, the Arab nations attacked. Now, this is what's called the Israel War of Independence, where 5 countries attacked Israel. These were namely Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. All 5 of them attacked at the same time, but of course Israel was being helped by the United States, by the Europeans, and all of the Western world. So Israel, it won that war decisively. This continued to anger the Arabs, but there was nothing they could do because Israel had won the war. Now fast forward a few years after that, there was an election in Iran, and the Iranian population elected a man called Mohammad Mossadegh. This was a 100% free and fair election, and this man won in a democratic process. So the Iranian people really wanted this man to lead them. But there was a problem. This man was nationalizing the oil, the natural resources of Iran to benefit the Iranians. Now the British and the Americans had a big problem with that because BP was busy, or the British was busy extracting as much oil as they can from Iran. So who is this man who is coming in and saying that the resources of Iran should benefit the Iranians? I'm pretty sure you've heard that story elsewhere. Now, when this happened, the United States and the British made a coup in 1953, and then they removed Mohammad Mossadegh. When they removed him, they installed the Shah, a man called the Shah, or the ruler of Iran. So this man ruled with an iron fist. If you criticize him or you speak up, you can easily disappear and never be found again. Now, he then gave all access to the British. They could take as much oil as they wanted. So, of course, they supported him everywhere. They supported him with the military. They supported him with intelligence. They made sure that he stayed in power so that the Western countries could benefit. Now, the next most significant part is in 1967. Now, remember the Arab countries and the countries around. When they got defeated, they were not happy, but there was nothing they could do about it. But tensions started to build up as years go by. So around 1967, Israel felt like these countries were about to attack, so Israel attacked them first. So this is what is called the 6 Days War. Israel attacked 3 countries. This was Lebanon, Egypt, and Syria. Iraq was involved, but not directly. It was sending weapons through Syria. After the end of that 6 days, Israel had won again, and now it had taken even more territory than before. It had taken the Sinai Desert in the south from Egypt, the Golan Heights at the top, at the north in Syria, and even more territory than what it already had. So this was the end of that 6 Days War, and the Arab countries were defeated, and Israel was even more embroiled. But don't forget, it was being supported by the United States and the entire Western world. Now, after 1967, the next most important year for this conflict between these three countries would be 1979. But a few months before 1979, the Palestinians throughout this time had been living under oppression, so they had been resisting guerrilla warfare kind of tactics, and some of them had fled to Lebanon and they were staying in the south of Lebanon. So few months before then, Israel was attacking those areas where those resistant groups were staying in south of Lebanon. And in 1979 in Iran, the revolution happened. Remember the Shah who ruled Iran with an iron fist, who was busy giving all the oil and resources to the British? He was overthrown by a man. The man was called Ruhollah Khomeini. This man actually stayed in Britain, funny enough, but he went back after the revolution. He was hailed as a savior, and then he said, down with the Shah, we are done with being exploited. We are going to take back everything that belongs to us. So the revolution happened in 1979. But now, this is what made the Americans angry. During the revolution, during that chaos, the students went and stormed the United States Embassy and kidnapped 66 staff members and held them hostage for 444 days. Now, imagine you are the United States. You are the biggest, baddest, but your people have been kidnapped and there's nothing you can do about it for more than a year and a half. Now, this is where the bitterness between the United States and Iran starts. But the bitterness with the Iranians and the United States start when they overthrew their democratically elected government in 1953, Mossadegh. Now, this is 1979. When this happens, the resistance between the Palestinians and the Israelis is continuing in Lebanon. Lebanon is just north of Israel. In 1982, Israel decides we're going to invade and occupy the whole area so that we can be in control of this. When they do that, that forms problems within Lebanon because people are saying you can't just come in and occupy our lands and we just stand there and wait. Now, a little detail to note. The Islam religion has majority two groups, the Shia and the Sunni. Now, Iran is Shia, these other countries are Sunni, including Saudi Arabia and all of those Arab states around it. Now, the Iranians after the revolution, remember now, it's no longer the Shah, it's the new government which doesn't like the West, which doesn't like Israel, and it doesn't accept Israel as a country or as a state. So they start supporting those Shia clerics who are in Lebanon, and they form a group called Hezbollah. So the new government in Iran is not a fan of the United States or the British or the Europeans because they have been exploiting, taking all the resources out of Iran and just milking it dry. And they see Israel as the personification of that imperialism in the Middle East. So that's why they never accept it as a state. Now, fast forward to current events. During the period between 1979 and now, Iran started to support all the groups that oppose Israel. It started to fund them with money, weapons, and also military training. These groups include the Yemenis, the Houthis in Yemen, it includes Hezbollah in Lebanon, and to some degree Hamas in Gaza. Now, during this entire time, it builds a network of these proxies in which it calls the Ring of Fire. Now, during this entire period, Benjamin Netanyahu specifically has been having a project to destroy every country that disagrees with him. This includes Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, this includes Syria, Iraq, and I can show you a video of him and his obsession with these countries and the lies of saying that they're developing weapons of mass destruction as far back as 1995. Take a look.
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The answer is categorically yes. The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. A third nation, by the way, is Libya as well. Libya is, while no one is watching, under the cloak, is trying very rapidly to build an atomic bomb capability.
So as you can see, Benjamin Netanyahu has been having a project of destroying these countries that he feels like they're a threat to Israel. And something to point out, in Israel there is no term limit, so you can be voted in as many times as possible. And Benjamin Netanyahu has been at the realm of power, either as a prime minister or somewhere around for a very long time. So he's been pushing this project for a long time. Even the 2003 invasion of Iraq, he was involved. Even the 2011 bombing of Libya, he was involved. So you can see that the man has been having an agenda for like 35 to 40 years to try to bring down all of these countries. And finally today, he has managed to bring in the United States to fight against Iran. Iran has went to Russia right now they were consulting with Vladimir Putin. But it's a little bit, to me, strange to see how China, Pakistan, and Russia were nowhere to be seen when Iran was being hit. But when Russia was fighting Ukraine, Iran was supplying them with Shahed drones and also a lot of ballistic missiles. So it's a weird relationship, because you might have thought that when Iran gets attacked, Russia might be able to go and lend them a hand. But that's not what happened, as you can see. And China is very quiet about supplying maybe military help or anything along those lines. What you can see is that they're talking, they're condemning their attacks, they're condemning the acts, but there's nothing of material that they're providing to the Iranians, which is a little bit weird according to me. Now, the question is, what is the impact of that to us? What is the African point of view? Now, first of all, this can affect the continent of Africa in a couple of ways. First of all, is through oil. There's a place in south of Iran called the Strait of Hormuz, and about a fifth or 20% of all oils that gets traded across the world passes through that area. So Iran is in total control of that strait. It can attack any ship that is passing there. So if it wanted to, it can close it down. There's a problem though. If it does that, it's also closing it down to some of its allies. These allies include China, which provided with a lot of financial help to kind of like navigate around the sanctions that were imposed by the United States and the Europeans. So you don't want to starve the Chinese just because you want to starve everybody else. And the countries that you're trying to hurt, which is the United States, probably it doesn't really get any oil from the Middle East at all. The United States is a net exporter of oil, which means that it doesn't need oil from anybody. So this means that doing that doesn't really achieve the goals of Iran. So it's very less likely that it's going to do that. But I do think that it needs to react. It needs to do something. I think it's going to withdraw from the NTP. It's going to kick out the inspectors from the country who are inspecting its uranium enrichment and nuclear program. I think those are going to happen very, very soon. And it makes sense for them to do that. If Iran decides to block the Strait of Hormuz, that means that a lot of oil that comes to Africa is going to no longer come through, which means that the price of oil will just skyrocket. If oil goes up, transport goes up. If transport goes up, everything that is transported, the price of that goes up. That includes food and everything else in between. Your landlord is definitely going to raise the rent because everything is more expensive for him as well. So that's one way that can impact us. The second way, it can also be food that is being imported from outside. All of these things are transported through ships. When oil goes up, everything goes up. So these are some of the things that can impact us. So that's where I will leave you. If you need more, you tell me in the comment section, what do you want me to cover? It can be more about the history side of things, so it can be more about what I think is going to happen going forward. It can even be about a completely different conflict. On my TikTok, I've covered Ukraine, I've covered Taiwan and China. I've also covered a lot of other wars and a lot of other geopolitical things. So do comment down below to tell me which other topics you would like for me to cover. And until then, I'll see you then.